The Overwatch League Grand Finals are nearly upon us. 4 all-star teams are set to duke it out to be crowned the best of the best. But who has what it takes to go all the way? That's coming up on today's Owl's Nest. Welcome back to all of our regulars, and hello to any new viewers here with us. If this happens to be your first time visiting the Owl's Nest, make sure you hit the subscribe button and like the video. Turn on that bell for notifications. So here we are, Jake. We are about to enter Grand Finals weekend. And at this point, honestly, with what we've seen this year, anything can happen, but we're going to do our best to try and make what predictions we can. And that is going to be starting with the first seed from North America and the second seed from Asia, the San Francisco Shock versus the Seoul Dynasty here. What do you think is going to happen in this match? It'll probably be the first one starting us off. What are you expecting?
I think it's, any match at Grand Finals weekend, I think is impossible to be confident in your prediction, so I'm sort of just looking at it in a fun lens of just being a supporter, being a fan, because I really don't believe that there is a definitive edge here, right? Because these teams just haven't played each other. There's going to be so much chaos in this. Even when you look at Philly versus Shock, right? Those teams, they don't play each other right before their match. Obviously, they prepare strats and whatnot, but they absolutely have played each other many, many, many times in the last months, just scrimming, when they're playing other teams. So there's a lot more familiarity there in the recent metas, and what they like to play, what their comforts are. And then you go to the APAC versus NA, and people their coaches are probably working feverishly to build that knowledge and give it to the players. So there'll be something there, but it won't be the players' intuition that you get from spending time just matching up against each other, playing each other in ladder, seeing what they play. That you just don't get any of that. So total chaos, no idea actually what's going to happen. But I predicted Shock. I thought Shock would win the NA playoffs. So I'm just going to say Shock all the way, man. 2-time champion. I'm a believer.
I've had a lot of people actually hit back at me because I think most people, unless you're already a dedicated Shock fan, I think that they want to see someone else win. And I feel like a lot of people are in, especially the Shanghai court, right? But I'm kind of with you. I don't know. There's something about having a 2-time champion, really cementing that San Francisco legacy going forward. That overall, since I'm not too biased or tied to any of these teams, I think that's who I'm kind of rooting for. And honestly, if the 2019 Grand Finals taught us anything, when the Shock were going in against the Vancouver Titans, that was as even as that matchup could have been, right? Down to map score. They had beaten each other exactly the same amount of times, and then the Shock ends up running away with it. So I think at least in this first matchup, the Shock versus the Dynasty, given how inconsistent might not be the right word, but the Dynasty throughout the season hasn't quite had the same success that the Shock, Diffusion, and the Dragons all have. So they're probably as safe as safe bet can be going into that first matchup. Looking then at the Fusion and the Dragons, both first seed of their respective divisions, respective regions here. What are you expecting out of these two teams?
This one I think is maybe I'm once again, I don't think anything I can be confident about, but this one I feel maybe a little bit more of an edge for Shanghai. But also this one I think will be more of the true bellwether of the region versus region, because I think these teams are actually quite similar in terms of what they like and what their natural strongest comps are. So my guess is that we're going to see a lot of mirror match of the Deathball comp, of DPS GOATs as people are calling it. So I think we'll see Sombra Reaper mirrors or Sombra Tracer but everything else mostly staying the same, with Winston Diva, Lucio, Moira, maybe Ryan Zarya on certain maps, but I don't think so. I really think it's going to be a lot of mirror match in that comp, and it's just basically going to be the Hisu versus Lip show of who's better at Sombra, Ivy versus Fleta, who's better at Reaper or Tracer. So even more impossible to predict, but because it's going to be a mirror match, so it's just going to be this true skill tester. Whereas Shock vs Seoul, I like Shock because they have so many flexible game plans. They can play all these different styles. I feel more confident in them. But for Philly vs Seoul, it's just wow, this is going to be a knockdown drag out for sure. That's a major piece of evidence for either side. People say, oh, APAC's the better region, or people say NA is the better region. This is going to be the evidence, because these have been the two teams at the top of their divisions all season long, and they're probably going to be mirror matching. So it'll be very different, I think, than the Seoul SF match, but I think just as fun.
Well, look, if you're promising us all types of Sombra and maybe even some Tracer play throughout these grand finals, I can definitely get behind that. And I think I speak for everyone when I say, at the very least, so long as it doesn't end up, APAC region versus APAC region, or even NA versus NA in the grand finals. I think that everyone benefits from one team from both these regions making it all the way. And with that in mind, I have to ask you, again, no sure things, any given payload, anything can change in the Overwatch League. But if you had to make a prediction, not even necessarily who wins, but which two teams are going to end up in that final best of 4, what's your best prediction for me?
Well, I guess just for the hype and the narratives and maybe my own personal biases, I'll say my pred is going to be Shock v Dragons in the grand final. Yeah, that's the prediction. If we don't have to hope, if you're not making me predict the winner, I won't.
Look, that's what I think. That, from the beginning of the season, when we saw just how good both of these teams were, and then once they got relegated to the different regions after all the COVID stuff went down, I think that's what everyone's been waiting for: the Shock versus the Dragons. It's what everyone wants to see, and one of two things is going to happen: either the Shock are going to cement their legacy as 2-time champions, or Shanghai are going to complete their anime storyline, going from 0-40 to inaugural, and then 2 seasons later, the grand champions. I think that either way, it's win-win for everyone watching in that case. And you know what? I honestly, I don't think we can end the show without actually giving actual predictions, Jake. I'm going to make you do it.
All right.
You got to pick one. Who's our grand champion?
Oh, all right. I'm going Chalk all the way. They've carried my Preds. They've carried my Preds up to this point. I predicted them to beat Philly. I had confidence. I had faith, and they did it. They pulled through. Had a 1v1 tournament with the boys, so now now I gotta rep it. Now I gotta be a Shock fanboy for real. So yeah,
all right, I'm not much of an anime fan myself. I don't think I've ever watched like a full series. I've watched a few movies here and there, but I'm going to go with the anime storyline. I'm going to put everything that I got behind the Shanghai Dragons. I think that they have what it takes to bring it home. So Jake with the Shock, me with the Dragons. We'll see who comes out on top this weekend. But guys, that's going to be it for the Owl's Nest here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure that you click the bell, subscribe to our channel, get all the notifications whenever new videos come out. And if your local radio station isn't running the Checkpoint XP national radio show, you can get it on demand wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back here next week talking about all the action that actually went down and finding out who the winner was, talking about all that action, seeing whose predictions were right. But until then, make sure you follow Jake at JakeOW on Twitter and Jake_OW on Twitch and YouTube. And until next time, stay on that payload.